My name is Judith Kennedy. I'm 30 years old, and recently I found myself sitting in the sterile office of my Palo Alto startup, my hands trembling as I stared at the divorce papers in front of me. The words, bold and unforgiving, burned into my consciousness. Financially incompetent. My soon-to-be ex-husband, Daniel, had written those words with cold precision. We had been married for 5 years, and I had always tried to make it work. But this was an attack on everything I had built. I glanced out of the office window. The sun was beginning to set, casting an orange glow over the city, a stark contrast to the storm brewing in my heart. I had spent the past several years growing my tech company, specializing in AI-driven market analysis, a company that was now in the process of being acquired for $800,000. Yet here I was, labeled financially useless by the one person I had trusted the most. I thought back to all the late nights I had worked, trying to create something real and valuable. Meanwhile, Daniel had always dismissed my work. "Your little project," he'd called it. He had never believed in my abilities, never bothered to understand what I was creating. And now, as I was on the verge of closing the biggest deal of my life, he had chosen to walk away, claiming irreconcilable differences. To him, my success meant nothing, but it meant everything to me. A knock on the door pulled me from my thoughts. It was Amanda, my secretary, standing in the doorway with an unusual smirk on her face. Something about the way she was looking at me, something about her confidence, made my stomach churn. "Daniel called," she said, her voice laced with a hint of amusement. "He'll be sending someone to pick up his things this weekend." I nodded, keeping my voice steady, though the anger bubbling inside me was impossible to ignore. "Thank you, Amanda." As she turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of her new diamond bracelet, a gift from Daniel's family. It was the same style as the one I had received from them on our first anniversary. It clicked in my mind, sharp and cold. The pieces of the puzzle were finally falling into place. My so-called best friend was more involved in this betrayal than I had ever imagined. I turned back to my laptop, opened the secured folder with my company's documentation, and set a plan into motion. Tomorrow, I would revoke Amanda's access to our systems. This was just the beginning. The next few days were a blur. I had to juggle the final stages of the divorce and the acquisition. Each contract I signed, each decision I made, felt like it was binding me tighter into a future I wasn't sure I was ready for. And all the while, Daniel's betrayal lingered in the back of my mind. In my heart, I knew I had to protect what I had built. But the thought of Daniel, and now Amanda, attempting to take credit for my hard work, it stung deeper than I could have anticipated. It wasn't long before the first crack in Amanda's armor appeared. The resignation email came in like clockwork, effective immediately. Amanda was pursuing an exciting new opportunity. A laughable excuse, but one that I had anticipated. My private investigator had already provided the photos of Daniel and Amanda having private lunches, planning who knows what behind my back. I sat in my office, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. I had done everything by the book, everything by the rules. But it seemed that those who didn't follow the rules were the ones who reaped the rewards. I wasn't about to let that happen. I spoke to my corporate attorney, Barbara, who reviewed all the final documents. "Miss Kennedy, you understand that by not contesting the divorce, Daniel will have no claim to your company's assets," Barbara said, her glasses slipping down her nose as she scanned the papers. "I understand perfectly," I replied, my voice steady. "Daniel may think I'm financially incompetent, but I've made my own success. He's about to learn the hard way that my worth is not defined by his limited vision." A few weeks passed, and the deal was sealed. I stood in the conference room, looking around at my team as they celebrated with champagne. We had done it. My company was officially acquired, and we had secured a bright future. But something inside me was still unsettled. Daniel's betrayal lingered like an open wound, and now, as I scanned the room, I realized that I had achieved everything on my own. I didn't need his validation. Michael, my lead developer, raised his glass and grinned. "To the best boss, who never once mentioned she was secretly a millionaire." The room erupted into laughter, but I couldn't shake the weight of the past. Daniel was out there somewhere, trying to take what wasn't his, but I had a responsibility to my team, to my future. The next morning, I received a text from Tyler in accounting, the news hitting me like a wave. "Judith, you won't believe what I just heard. Daniel just took out a massive loan against his real estate holdings. He's liquidating everything to invest in some exclusive opportunity." My heart skipped a beat. I knew what this meant. Daniel was still chasing after something, anything, to get rich quick. But this time, it wasn't going to work. "Thanks for the heads up," I texted back, keeping my voice calm. I had more important things to focus on, like growing my company and helping my team reach new heights. A few days later, my old private investigator called with some unsettling news. "Thought you'd want to know. Daniel's in deep. He took a loan from a shady source, and now the investors are after him." The satisfaction I had hoped for didn't come. Instead, there was only a quiet resolution. I had already moved on, focused on the future, focused on real success. Later that afternoon, I found myself standing in front of a large crowd at a tech conference, presenting our latest breakthrough in AI for healthcare. The room was filled with eager faces, waiting for the next big idea. But I wasn't interested in impressing them with flashy promises or quick returns. My focus was on creating something that would last, something that would make a difference. As I spoke about the importance of ethical innovation, I couldn't help but reflect on my past. Daniel had always been in a rush to get ahead, to get rich, but I had learned that success wasn't about quick wins. It was about creating real value. 2 months later, the news broke about Daniel and Amanda's scam. They had run off with millions, convinced by the promise of quick riches. But the truth came out, and now they were facing the consequences. And as the story unfolded, I continued to build something meaningful, something that would change the world for the better. I had learned a valuable lesson through all of this. Success wasn't about getting even. It was about moving forward, about building something real, something that could stand the test of time. As I sat at my desk, reviewing our latest healthcare partnership, I received an email from Barbara. "The FBI has secured the last of Daniel's offshore accounts. It's over." I smiled, knowing that my success wasn't just about business. It was about living with integrity, creating something of value, and proving that hard work always pays off in the end. A few months passed since the dramatic turn of events that had unraveled Daniel's and Amanda's plans. I had moved on, as painful as it was, but not without taking the lessons learned with me. The acquisition of my company was now in full swing. My team was expanding, the tech solutions we were offering were gaining traction, and I was watching the once small company I had nurtured blossom into something remarkable. It wasn't just a tech company anymore. It was a force for change in healthcare, climate science, and more. It was everything I had hoped it would be, and more. Despite all of this success, I couldn't shake the feeling of having been betrayed, not just by Daniel and Amanda, but by the expectations of society at large. As a woman in tech, I had spent most of my career fighting the assumption that I was just a supporting player in a male-dominated industry. At times, it had felt like I was constantly proving myself, defending my choices, and explaining my worth. But now, standing in my office with the sun setting over Silicon Valley, watching the teams work in unison towards new horizons, I realized how far I had come. I had never needed Daniel's validation, despite all his condescending remarks. I had always been the one pushing the envelope. He was too busy looking for shortcuts, and that had cost him everything. And Amanda, she had been nothing but a fleeting part of the chaos, someone too obsessed with appearances to see the real work behind the scenes. I picked up my phone, sending a quick message to Barbara. "Do we have any updates on the FBI investigation?" I wrote, knowing that I was still a small part of something larger than myself. I wasn't just trying to protect my company anymore. I was building something that could withstand the scrutiny of the world. I quickly received her reply. "They're finalizing the investigation. Daniel's assets are nearly liquidated, but Amanda remains missing." I sighed, putting the phone down. The satisfaction of justice had never been the end goal for me. My focus had always been on progress, on creating something that could change lives. It wasn't about the drama, it was about the results. It wasn't long before the final blow fell upon Daniel and Amanda. The FBI had managed to trace the last of their assets. Amanda had successfully vanished into thin air, leaving nothing but empty promises in her wake. The news about Daniel's fraudulent schemes spread like wildfire. Yet, while everyone around me seemed to want justice, I had already moved past it. A month later, I stood before a room full of young engineers, innovators, and entrepreneurs at a tech conference. It was my turn to speak on stage, and I felt a wave of calm wash over me as I took the microphone. There was no anger, no bitterness, just the quiet pride of knowing I had overcome obstacles that others wouldn't have been able to. "Success isn't defined by how much you gain," I started. "It's about the lives you impact. It's about solving problems that really matter." The audience listened intently as I shared the story of how my company's AI had revolutionized medical care, how it had saved lives, and how we had developed tools to better understand climate change patterns. The real success wasn't in the numbers or the awards. It was in the knowledge that the work we were doing would make a difference for generations to come. 6 months later, my company's success was undeniable. We had expanded into international markets, signed deals with multiple healthcare providers, and our climate change models had made a significant impact on emergency preparedness. And just as importantly, I had found peace in the process. It wasn't about seeking revenge or showing Daniel or Amanda that they were wrong. It was about proving to myself that I could build something sustainable, something meaningful. One evening, after another successful board meeting, I was walking out of our office building when I received a message from Barbara. "The final phase of the FBI's investigation is complete. They've located Amanda. They're also looking into any remaining assets she might have hidden." I sat down on a bench outside, feeling a sense of closure. There was nothing left for me to prove. The story was over. I had moved on, and so had my company. One day, while reviewing new partnership offers, I got a message from an old acquaintance, Michael, my lead developer. He had always been a steady rock in the company, and I knew I could trust him. "Judith, I think it's time we take a step back and reflect on everything we've built," he wrote. "We're not just changing industries, we're changing lives. I know we're all busy, but I think we should pause and appreciate how far we've come." I smiled as I read his words. There it was again. It wasn't about the money, the accolades, or the deals. It was about the impact we were making. That evening, Michael and I stood together on the rooftop of our office building, looking out over the city. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the horizon. It was a moment of reflection, a moment of peace. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't pursued this? If you had just settled for what Daniel wanted? Michael asked, his voice soft. I paused before answering, a small smile tugging at my lips. No, I said firmly, because I've already created the future I want. I'm not living in the shadow of anyone else's expectations. And that was the final lesson I learned. True success isn't about living in someone else's shadow or proving others wrong. It's about moving forward, learning from your mistakes, and building something that will make a lasting difference in the world. The past had been full of challenges, but those challenges had made me stronger. They had sharpened my focus, and in the end, it wasn't about the fast wins or the quick schemes that so many people chase. It was about the journey, the work, and the impact we had along the way. As I looked out over the valley, watching the city lights flicker below me, I knew that the future was bright, and I was ready for it. What do you think? Have you ever found yourself at a crossroads, deciding between chasing quick gains and pursuing something meaningful? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's talk about how we can all build something that lasts. Success is a journey, not a destination, and sometimes the most valuable lessons come from the challenges we face. Let's keep the conversation going. What's your definition of real success?